All right, welcome into FST. It's Fantasy Sports Today. My name's Matt Striker. His name's Joe Pisapia, and this is the place if you want to dominate straight up. Is it season-long fantasy? We've got you covered. Are you cashing in DFS? God bless you. We're with you. Straight up wagering, all that and then some. Folks, at SportsGrid, at SportsGrid TV, those are our social media handles. Just make sure you're following along. A lot of great information. And what else could we expect from the one and only author of the Fantasy Black Book? It's available right now, the one and only Joe Pisapia. Joe, my friend, happy to be with you as always. Football is ahead of us. A lot of conversations to have. Injuries, start, sit. Let's get to it.
Yeah, it's a tough week between the buys and the injuries. And this is what I always say, those first 4 weeks of the season, it's kind of like, well, you don't worry too much about it. This is where you win and lose your leagues these weeks. Mm-hmm. These weeks are where if you built a good bench, you're doing well. If you made good pickups, you're going to be okay. But if you were kind of lazy on that stuff and you had like a 2-2 record going into the buys, could be hurting right now. So this is a really pivotal week here in week 6 as we continue to look ahead because of the injuries, because of the buys, finding players to get and starting the right guys. And we're going to start at the running back position. Matt, who do you have lined up for me to start and sit for week 6?
Okay. All right, here we go, folks. We're going to help you build your lineups here. Joe, the first question for you, is it Tyler Algier at Carolina, or is it Austin Eckler at Baltimore? I mean, I think most people would lean Algier just based on the matchup, but I'd like to hear from you.
Yeah, I'm going to fade away from Algier here in this one. I'm going to go with Eckler. Brian Robinson out for this game. Now, you might see Jeremy McNichols show up there, who had 3 touchdowns in the last 2 weeks when he's been out there. So he's obviously a part of this offense and very comfortable in this offense, which is great. But Eckler has got to work a ton. And you have to figure, too, the Commanders are mostly behind in this game. Now, that's a good thing for Eckler's value because he's more pass-catching back, right? He's also a guy you're going to see line up in the slot from time to time. So Jaden Daniels obviously getting very comfortable throwing the football, getting comfortable doing everything in this offense right now. This is his first real test. I mean, real test here in Baltimore on the road. Lamar Jackson, the reigning MVP on the other side, and Harbaugh on the other side too. So I'm fascinated to see if he passes this test or not. Regardless, the future looks very bright there. But I think Eckler is the better play on the field more in a game, I think, that's going to play a little bit more into Eckler's strength. So I know Algier keeps getting those carries. I'd love to see a Bijan Robinson game. That's another guy too. I don't know. I mean, we have these guys like Breece Hall and Bijan Robinson. Can we please just get these guys the football 25 times? I mean, is that too much to ask, Matt? Is it?
It seems to be. Yes, it seems to be too much to ask, at least at this point. You got to understand, look, we as analysts and fantasy players and wagers, we also have to take into consideration the human element of this game. We are not in those coaches' rooms. We have no idea what their plans are for week 7 and 8 and so on. So with that said, let's focus on the now. Let's talk wide receivers here. DeAndre Hopkins against Indianapolis. By the way, I do have a Will Levis anytime touchdown ticket. I'm sorry, anytime interception. Big difference. Ticket holding. So let's see how that works out. Or Jalen Tolbert, who has Detroit, which you think there's going to be a lot of points in this game. Maybe Tolbert's hands will be on the receiving ends of some.
I do. I actually, Tolbert had that touchdown late in that game last week against the Pittsburgh Steelers in that delayed game. Tolbert is emerging as like that number 2 look in this offense. And frankly, I mean, that's a very valuable position in the Dallas Cowboys situation. And when you're talking about the 2 quarterbacks, you mentioned Will Levis, who you want to bet for an interception against Dak Prescott. And I mean, people can make all their jokes they want about Dak Prescott. He's still a very good NFL quarterback. So I would go with Tolbert here. Once again, playing the total, playing the opportunity. If you see where things are going in the trend line too for him, 10 targets in that last game against the Pittsburgh Steelers. He caught 7 of them for 87 yards and a touchdown. Now, I'm not trying to live in the past, but at the same time, DeAndre Hopkins and the Tennessee Titans have been less thrilling. I mean, the biggest target volume he's had so far this year is 7 against Green Bay. He caught 6 of them for 73. So both of these guys are worth starting, I think, especially this week with all the buys and injuries you've had. So I'm okay with starting both these guys. But I think I'd rather play Tolbert. I would say this too. Hopkins is an interesting trade target, Matt, because I do think the Titans continue to fall out of it. And I think a team like the Kansas City Chiefs would be a perfect landing spot for DeAndre Hopkins towards the end of his career, getting one shot to go play in a Super Bowl. That would be a huge win. And I think you're going to see Keenan Allen, DeAndre Hopkins, Devontae Adams, some of these older wide receivers trying to cash in their chips here for one great Super Bowl run. And I don't blame them either. So Hopkins, an interesting asset to add. Both guys startable. If I can only have one spot, though, I'll take Tolbert this week.
Right, you create a great scenario there with some of the veteran wide receivers and some of the situations that could unfold. But let's again stay with the here and now. Let's talk tight ends here. You believe that this is going to be the week for tight ends to really break out. Let's talk Isaiah Likely, who does have Mark Andrews ahead of him, similar to the Algier and Robinson conversation we had at the top. But Likely will have Washington. You expect a lot of points in that one. Or do you like Dalton Schultz, who has New England, a softer matchup, and considering some of the injuries in Houston, maybe Dalton Schultz is the play?
People are going to be mad at me about this, I know, because
Oh, no.
Isaiah Likely had 2 touchdowns. Well, here's the thing. Isaiah Likely had 3 receptions for 13 yards, but he had 2 touchdowns, right? So clearly that was them finding a weakness in that defense of the Cincinnati Bengals last week. And there's weakness in the secondary and the linebacking core of the Washington Commanders too. They've tightened things up recently, but again, the Baltimore Ravens offense is a little bit different. So the frustration with Likely is you probably had him on your bench last week, and now you want to start him this week. But I think Dalton Schultz might be the better start, because I think if you're just looking for sheer volume in PPR leagues, I think Dalton Schultz might see an uptick in that value. The vacated targets of Nico Collins are great. And I'm looking at Dalton Schultz, who's actually in Fantasy Pros rankings a few spots ahead of Likely. So the experts, quote unquote, agree with me here. He saw 6 targets last week in that game. I think he could see more like 8 to 9 in this contest against the Patriots today. I think he has touchdown equity, despite the fact he doesn't have one on the year. So in a half PPR or standard league, I understand starting Likely. He's had some touchdown equity if you're just looking for the touchdown. But in a full PPR, I think Schultz is the more appealing play today in the matchup, in the circumstance of being down Nico Collins and Stephon Diggs, again, having to lock up with Christian Gonzalez. That's a tough day at the office, which means more Tank Dell, more Dalton Schultz. So that's the way I would go in this one for PPR.
All right, let's move the conversations to quarterback. I'll take the L here on this one for the first half of the season, first few weeks of the season. I was big on the Daniel Jones anytime interception, and I was the first one to go out and tell everyone. But the last 3 weeks, Daniel Jones is a much different quarterback. He has Cincinnati today. Or there's Baker Mayfield. And Joe, you've been touting the wares of Baker Mayfield for quite some time. He has New Orleans that have their own situations with which to deal. So how do you lean, Jones or Mayfield, and why?
This one's really close, actually, for me anyway. I just look at this and I say, Baker Mayfield is certainly the safer name brand value that you're getting out there. But these guys are only separated by 1 spot here on the expert consensus rankings. And Daniel Jones, believe it or not, has actually played like a QB1 quite a bit lately. So that, I think, is what's very intriguing. He's had a few QB1 finishes. I'm looking at the Cincinnati defense. It's so bad. And I think that I just want to go that route. Mike Evans is going to be tough to start this week. You're going to start him anyway against Marshawn Lattimore. It's going to be disappointing. So he's really got to use Godwin. He's got to use some of these other weapons like Cade Otton. He's down a running back. I think this one might be kind of a slog in division matchup here. Huge game for Tampa and New Orleans kind of fighting for their life. I think the defense rallies a little bit, but Daniel Jones, I think against the Cincinnati Bengals is just easier points. Now I'd like it more if Malik Neighbors was there, but Slayton stepped up. Wan'Dale has been really solid. I think I lean towards Daniel Jones's upside and the rushing equity he brings, which is something Baker doesn't bring enough of.
All right, with the time that we have remaining, let's have a deep conversation. Bo Nix or Drake May? I'm going to go slam my head against this wall while you give the answer. Go.
Yeah, it's a tough one here. If you're in super flex leagues and bye weeks have hit you hard, this is a scenario that might be, as Matt continues to bang his head against the wall, this is a situation that is not ideal. I think I would just lean towards Bo Nix, who's been starting for a few weeks. Drake May is a player that we're all excited as Patriot fans to see. I just wish he was seeing a better offensive line in front of him. So he's going to be running for his life potentially against that Texas defense. Give me Bo Nix. We'll be right back with more FST after this.
Anyone that's been to a sporting event, the atmosphere before a game, I think Game Time Decisions has that same exact atmosphere. This is our arena. This is what we do. There is going to be an energy to Game Time Decisions that you will feel night in and night out. The excitement you get when you lock your bets in, when you're figuring out what you want to do, we can zone in on the biggest games each night, I want this to be the place that people come to before the games start so they feel as ready as possible to lock in their cards. We are going to hit every single one of those markets that you need to know about. We're gonna go through every single thing, and I've got a great team behind me that's gonna help me get the job done. There is not gonna be a better place, I promise you, than Game Time Decisions to get that new information, react to it, and be able to then bet accordingly. We will have everything at our disposal, and we will use that to our advantage. I'm Kevin Walsh. Tune into Game Time Decisions from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern on SportsGrid.
I do think they come back, and I think they win this game, but they've got to do it decisively. I think they've got to get that confidence back because they went out there, and like I said earlier, Kentucky almost beat Georgia. Kentucky almost did beat Ole Miss, and I think what you're going to see in this conference, if you don't play well and you're a top 10 team in the SEC, you're going to get knocked out by one of those top 25 teams in the SEC if you're not ready to play.
Powered by SportsGrid.
He already has more than 1,000 yards. The last three running backs to win the Heisman, Derrick Henry, Mark Ingram, Reggie Bush, did not have more than 650 in their opening 5 games of the year. Ashton Genty on pace to strike the pose in December.
Statistics matter. Blow every record out of the water, and he will be a Heisman. Disgraceful performance by the head coach, not Gene.
The Early Line. Only on SportsGrid.
All right, folks, welcome back into FST Fantasy Sports Today. Matt Striker and Joe Pisapia with you here. And it's time now for the most current NFL injury update news. Just so we know, Joe is always day-to-day, but he's out there. So let's talk here. The Giants have a star wide receiver in the making, but this concussion protocol, this is rough. I think it opens up doors for other receivers, Darius Slayton and the sort. But what do you know about Malik Neighbors?
Yeah, look, he's going to be out again this week. Some people are mad because I guess he was at a Travis Scott concert this week. And, when you have concussions, you're not supposed to be out there with lights and loud noises. But look, the protocols are the protocols. If they say he can't play, he can't play. What's he going to do? I mean, at this point, you might as well go hear some music. But no music here for the Giants with Malik Neighbors this week again, which is crushing because this was the guy who was up there towards the top of the wide receiver board. Wan'Dale Robinson up stock. Darius Slayton is absolutely a streamer this week, so I'd be looking at him. When you have a lot of these injuries right now and you're hurting at the flex spot or at the wide receiver 3 spot, Slayton I think is a guy you could throw back in there. He looked solid with Daniel Jones last week. It's still a pretty good matchup here against the Cincinnati Bengals, so I'd be looking for him. And it stinks that we don't get Malik Neighbors for another week. Evan Ingram, though, good news. He looks like he is actually going to play. Can you believe it, folks? Get him in your lineups. Hopefully you did it in time here. London game's kicking off. But Evan Ingram, hamstring, has not played in weeks. And we keep getting this tease in the last minute. He's not playing, so we're streaming guys off the waiver wire. That's been terrible. Joe Mixon plans to play in week 6, so that is good. And apparently Justin Fields is not going to be replaced at quarterback, which is also good. Not an injury, but last 2 weeks, some losses for the Steelers, tough losses at that, one at home. But again, there's no future with Russell Wilson. The future is completely with Justin Fields, so you can feel good about starting him. Some other news and notes here as we go through some of the injuries to James Cook. Plans to play against the Jets on Monday night, but Ray Davis is a viable option. So if you're worried about him, you've got some extra bench spot there, Davis is an interesting ad if James Cook all of a sudden becomes a game time, which right now does not seem to be the issue. He's dealing with a toe issue, though. Those can be lingering. So you might want to pick up Ray Davis anyway, Matt. Can never have enough of those backup running backs. I think we're kind of understanding that and learning it the hard way in 2024.
Yeah, and I love his work with the Kinks. No, nobody. Okay, let's talk about.
I got
let's
it.
Talk about what's going on.
I got it with you.
What's going on with Cincinnati's backfield here? Chase Brown nursing a quad. What's the situation?
Yeah, he is going to play. So if you have Chase Brown shares, you get him in there and you hope for the best. Chase Brown has been the more explosive guy, but Zach Moss has been a guy floating around there and still getting opportunities. But Joe Burrow in this offense is back, and Chase Brown, I think, is still a player that you're high on for the rest of season. Also in the running back room, Jaylen Warren was upgraded from questionable to no injury designation for the first time in weeks. This helps the Pittsburgh Steelers offense quite a bit. He's a guy in PPR leagues I would throw right out there as a flex play if I desperately needed help. Bad news at the running back position. Gus Edwards with an ankle injury is out and looks like he is going to miss a few weeks here. So that is bad news for the Chargers coming off of that bye. We'll see how that goes. Joe Alt was also removed from the injury report, so he is back. That's very important because without Joe Alt, that offensive line is not quite the same. Zamir White is questionable with that groin issue. There's a lot of people who think that Madison's going to get the bulk of the workload, but we already said that's a tough matchup against the Steelers, so just keep that in mind. Also, Jacoby Myers' ankle is questionable against the Steelers, and that could be a bad situation for the Raiders. No Adams, maybe no Myers, a lot of Brock Bowers, so fire him up. And if you have two tight ends, you can play McBride and Bowers. I would play both of those guys.
Wow. All right, let's move to another player that, again, concussions. And folks, listen, before we are off this planet, they will either move back to leather helmets or this whole entire game will become flag football. Devonta Smith, what do you know about him?
Devonta Smith is going to play, which is good news. He's passed through, so that's excellent. Also returning A.J. Brown, so the Eagles back at full strength. So that's a win for the Eagles. It's a win for Jalen Hurts, but it's an L for Dallas Goedert, most likely, who is probably going to fall back into the pack. Now, of course, you're still starting him at tight end, but in terms of what your expectations are, I think you might have to temper them in this matchup today. I am really curious, again, to see if this is the swan song for Deshaun Watson. I think if you ask Kevin Stefanski, he wanted to replace him last week. I'm sure he's getting pressure from the front office based on the investment they made in him to keep him in these games. But at a certain point, you got to start winning football games. And Deshaun Watson has taken more sacks than any other quarterback this year. That's not good. So you've got to find a way here to spark this offense. Nick Chubb returning eventually is not enough. You're going to need some better quarterback play. And you have somebody in Jameis Winston who is shown you that he can spark an offense, and he got some weapons to work with. I think you might see that change this week, and don't be surprised if they do make that change, that maybe things get a little dicey towards the end of that one.
All right, the bells are ringing for a name that a lot of fantasy managers are talking about. It's Darnell Mooney. What do we know about the knee?
Well, the knee has been troubling Darnell Mooney, but he is going to play, so that's good news here. He logged a full practice on Friday, so that's excellent. Just for perspective, too, Darnell Mooney, a guy that we were talking about as a sleeper on this show back in August, a guy you just draft with your last pick, wide receiver 69 on the year. Matt, you want to know where wide receiver 69 has ended up so far in the first 6 weeks? He is wide receiver 17.
No,
17.
Okay, good.
Oh, I mean, 8 days pushing it even further. Wide receiver 17, pretty spectacular. 3 touchdowns on the year. Good matchup against Carolina. Get him in your lineups this week. Certainly a good situation there for him to score some fantasy points. And what we've seen here is patience be rewarded, which is everybody was doom and gloom. Week 1, Kirk Cousins' first game back. He didn't play football for the whole second half. It's a new offense, new pieces. Give him some time to get things together. And if you do that, guess what? Cole's Cash, Kirk Cousins looking pretty good running that offense. Last time I checked, Drake London looking good. Kyle Pitts maybe on the upswing too. So you're in a situation here where right now, I think if you are a Falcons fan, you're very excited about where things are going for Kirk Cousins and this offense. You hope that they take care of business. They get Carolina next week, Seattle next week after that, and then the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Those are some winnable games, followed by Dallas, New Orleans, and Denver. So there's a chance here that Atlanta can start to pull away from this division, Matt.
Right. Yeah, no, I agree wholeheartedly. And before the season started, I did my sit down by looking at the over-unders here. And I think that I don't know where Atlanta stood, maybe at 9.5 or 10.5, but that's the team to beat. When we come back, we are going to talk futures. Matt Striker and Joey P right here on FST.
Anyone that's been to a sporting event, the atmosphere before a game, I think Game Time Decisions has that same exact atmosphere. This is our arena. This is what we do. There is going to be an energy to game time decisions that you will feel night in and night out. The excitement you get when you lock your bets in, when you're figuring out what you want to do, we can zone in on the biggest games each night. I want this to be the place that people come to before the games start so they feel as ready as possible to lock in their cards. We are going to hit every single one of those markets that you need to know about. We're going to go through every single thing, and I've got a great team behind me that's going to help me get the job done. There is not going to be a better place, I promise you, than Game Time Decisions to get that new information, react to it, and be able to then bet accordingly. We will have everything at our disposal, and we will use that to our advantage. I'm Kevin Walsh. Tune into Game Time Decisions from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern on SportsGrid.
I do think they come back, and I think they win this game, but they've got to do it decisively. I think they've got to get that confidence back because they went out there, and like I said earlier, Kentucky almost beat Georgia. Kentucky almost did beat Ole Miss, and I think what you're going to see in this conference, if you don't play well and you're a top 10 team in the SEC, you're going to get knocked out by one of those top 25 teams in the SEC if you're not ready to play.
Powered by SportsGrid.
He already has more than 1,000 yards. The last three running backs to win the Heisman, Derrick Henry, Mark Ingram, Reggie Bush, did not have more than 650 in their opening 5 games of the year. Ashton Genty on pace to strike the pose in December.
Statistics matter. Blow every record out of the water, and he will be a Heisman. Disgraceful performance by the head coach, not genius.
The Early Line. Only on SportsGrid.
All right, welcome back into FST. It's Fantasy Sports Today. Matt Striker and Joe Pisapia with you here. And just a quick reminder, folks, ain't it great to be alive? Just take a second and realize just how great it is and smile and have a wonderful time and tell people you love them. With that said, it's also great to be alive when you make money. Evidently, that's the way of the world. Futures update now, and the reason I get happy is because, Joe, you and I have been able to almost have a crystal ball, dare I say. We do it with baseball on this show. Now we're doing it here with football. Is finding these futures markets and then finding the broken numbers, watching as numbers change and realizing that we see the change before others. Let's take a look at the AFC East winner. Now with the coaching change in New York, you see the Jets sitting at 3-1, plus 310. The Bills are minus 230 to win this thing. And then you have the Dolphins at plus 750. But let's have the conversation about that Jet plus money spot and what the person that's up and playing with house money might want to do here.
Well, look, to me, it's now the Buffalo Bills division to lose. And I know the last couple weeks, they've been losing. So Buffalo Bills, this is your moment here to put your stamp on this division, handle your business, and for Josh Allen to play like an MVP, make the most of what you've got here. Shakir hopefully is going to play. James Cook's hopefully going to play. But you need more. The Buffalo Bills need to go out and add another wide receiver. I don't know who that guy's going to be, but they need to add somebody because I don't think they have enough at the position to compete with the Ravens or the Chiefs or those kind of teams. I just don't think they have that. I wanted to look up this number too because I thought it was very important. I mentioned earlier about whenever you get a team that fires a head coach like the New York Jets did, I tend to run to that line and bet that team on the money line. And typically they're an underdog because they're a team that's losing. I have hesitancy with this, but the number is also really interesting. 41% of the amount of times that those teams have won. Now that doesn't sound like a lot in your mind, but it actually is when you consider these teams aren't good, which is why they're firing a head coach in the first place. So the line typically also increases. Usually it goes from 36% to 54% in terms of the increase after that coaching firing where the line grows. So you're making a play here where the return on investment is huge. And that is why I typically go and run to do that. I have pause because I'm just not sure of the chaos within the Jets organization. And it doesn't feel like the typical, let's rally around the situation and the this isn't like Gruden gets fired and everybody loves Bisaccia. They all rally around Bisaccia, right? Just as an example, right? Or when Josh McDaniels gets fired, and nobody liked Josh McDaniels, but everybody loved Antonio Pierce. Everybody wanted to play hard for him last year, right? We don't know much about this defensive coordinator who's now taking over, right? We already see the first thing he does is he creates some tension there on the offensive side by taking away the play calling. So this is a very complicated situation. I'm staying away from it, but I do think this is an opportunity for the Buffalo Bills to really stamp this division here and stamp it hard. So we'll see if they can handle their business, or maybe they do just hand the ball off or get the ball in Breece Hall's hands a lot more and play defense and do what Robert Saleh probably wanted to do more of, which would be unfortunate for Robert Saleh to have to watch on Monday night.
All right, let's keep this moving here. Let's talk about the New England Patriots, their regular season win total now that there is a new quarterback under center. What do you like here? Over 4.5 or under 4.5?
I think it's still under minus 128. Either way, it's a really interesting line because I don't think Vegas quite knows yet what to make of the Patriots. Drake May is going to get the first start today of his career. We're all excited to see Drake May. I just want to see Drake May upright and healthy. That is my big question mark with Drake May. This offensive line is bad. The weapons are not good. Ramondre Stevenson is out. I mean, it's just not a good scenario. It's not what you want here for the Drake May debut. So pressure from the fan base and from the front office, unfortunately, is not a good reason to make a decision like this. So I'm concerned for Drake May today. And I just hope that it doesn't set his development back too much this year to play in this scenario that he's going to have to in 2024.
All right, let's talk Super Bowl here with the time that we have left. The Chiefs give you plus 500. Is there any long shot that you like?
Yeah, there's two. And I don't know if I call them long shots, but look, forget the 49ers. That team's not good enough. I think we all recognize that. I don't care. And we've said it here on the show a million times. The Super Bowl hangover is real. They're not getting back there, and they're certainly not winning it. So where does that leave us? Well, the Chiefs are a 5-0 paper tiger, maybe, holding it together with string. If you look at the rest of these teams out here, the Baltimore Ravens at plus 750 with the way they're controlling the football look really intriguing. And then the Detroit Lions at plus 1,100. I got to say, the Lions Chiefs was my Super Bowl pick going into this year. It's what I bet early in the year. And it feels like that could be, especially today in this huge game here for Detroit. You come out of the bye, you beat Dallas on the road. You're in cruise control, I think, for this conference. So we'll see if they're up for the task. When we come back, more FST right here. A little over-under game on SportsGrid.
Anyone that's been to a sporting event, the atmosphere before a game, I think Game Time Decisions has that same exact atmosphere. This is our arena. This is what we do. There is going to be an energy to Game Time Decisions that you will feel night in and night out. The excitement you get when you lock your bets in, when you're figuring out what you want to do, we can zone in on the biggest games each night. I want this to be the place that people come to before the game starts so they feel as ready as possible to lock in their cards. We are going to hit every single one of those markets that you need to know about. We're going to go through every single thing, and I've got a great team behind me that's going to help me get the job done. There is not going to be a better place, I promise you, than Game Time Decisions to get that new information, react to it, and be able to then bet accordingly. We will have everything at our disposal, and we will use that to our advantage. I'm Kevin Walsh. Tune into Game Time Decisions from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern on SportsGrid.
I do think they come back, and I think they win this game, but they've got to do it decisively. I think they've got to get that confidence back because they went out there, and like I said earlier, Kentucky almost beat Georgia. Kentucky almost did beat Ole Miss, and I think what you're going to see in this conference, if you don't play well and you're a top 10 team in the SEC, you're going to get knocked out by one of those top 25 teams in the SEC if you're not ready to play.
Powered by SportsGrid.
He already has more than 1,000 yards. The last three running backs to win the Heisman, Derrick Henry, Mark Ingram, Reggie Bush, did not have more than 650 in their opening 5 games of the year. Ashton Genty on pace to strike the pose in December.
Statistics matter. Blow every record out of the water, and he will be a Heisman. Disgraceful performance by the head coach, not Gene.
The Early Line. Only on SportsGrid.
All right, welcome back into FST Fantasy Sports Today. Matt Striker and Joe Pisapia with you here right up until the top of the hour, and then more quality programming as always here on SportsGrid. Joe, it's time to do fantasy over-under here, and what I love about these conversations is it informs a larger conversation about the game in and of itself. Right, so let's take a look at Tank Dell here, 56.5 receiving yards. We've talked at length about the Texans' injury situations, although Joe Mixon will play, but it's the Nico Collinses of the world. We're talking about how Dalton Schultz may have an opportunity here, but Tank Dell at 56.5 receiving yards. Over or under, Joe?
Yeah, I'm going to go over. I have concerns about the Patriots offense, and that means that you're going to give the Texans offense more opportunities, because if you can't move the football, guess what? You're punting it away and giving the Texans more opportunities to score. I do think, I'll reiterate too, Stephon Diggs is a start this week, but Christian Gonzalez is a tough corner matchup. So let's look for Tank Dell, Dalton Schultz to work a little bit more. And I think Tank Dell, you're going to see that explosive game here from him. The Patriots can't get out of their own way right now. I would still look for an under in this game. The Patriots have played to unders in almost every game they played so far this year. So I know those numbers look pretty low, but the Patriots have done a pretty good job of still underwhelming, despite the fact that these numbers have been sometimes 35, 36. I mean, they are getting lower and lower every week. And the Patriots find a way to play to the under. I still think that 56.5 is a number that Tank Dell can get. And the reason, too, why I would wager, if I am getting into the weeds here a little bit with Tank Dell, go for the receiving yards, not the receptions. The reason why is because he just needs one big play to get this. That's it. He is an explosive player. A 70-yard touchdown from Tank Dell is in the range of outcomes. So instead of looking for 4.5 receptions, I would be looking for just the receiving yards and take that over, because if he does get 5 catches or 4 catches, he could still get this number.
All right. And as a kid, I remember reading Captain America comics. Captain America had a little-known sidekick, and anyone out there knows his name. They're smiling right now. His name was Bucky. But right now, Bucky Irving is no one's sidekick, because right now the path to play is clear. 37.5 rushing yards for Bucky Irving. Your thoughts, Joe?
My thoughts are I'm going over. This is a clear backfield here for him. Now, I've seen in some markets this number is shot up, so understand that that's something that you have to take into account. But I think Bucky Irving has showed you that despite his undersized frame, he is somebody that has got a little pep in his step. And Bucky Irving has delivered some fantasy points out of nowhere a few weeks. Rachaad White is a guy that really has not looked explosive. So Rachaad White obviously dealing with an injury, more Bucky Irving today. And I think that's something you can feel confident starting. That's why he is an RB2 this week on most people's rankings. A flex play, certainly viable. DFS, certainly viable too. But I think you're going to go over this number today. I also think he has some touchdown equity as well as you get further down the trough here. So Bucky Irving, a start. Bucky Irving, an over on that 37.5 rushing.
All right, moving to the tight end position. The name Isaiah Likely is on the tip of a lot of fantasy managers' tongues, but people seem to forget that Mark Andrews is still around. 23.5 receiving yards here, Joe. Over or under? What are you expecting?
I think everyone's concerned that Lamar Jackson has forgotten that Mark Andrews is around still. But good news for him, which is the snap count went up last week from 33 to 46 to 55. So we're having a nice little ramp up there. He also saw 5 targets last week, caught 4 of them for 55 yards. Washington's not a good secondary. You could throw the ball in Washington all day. That's a good situation here. And it's a small number, 23.5. So right now, when you look at the tight end landscape with bye weeks and everything that's going on here, I think he is still a guy you can go out there and either acquire or play. Evan Ingram being back is huge. I'd rather play Evan Ingram back, who, again, that game's already kicked off now. Hopefully you were listening to the show earlier. But if you're looking at the Tyler Conklins and Kate Ottens of the world, I think in the matchup, I would rather be playing Mark Andrews and streaming him. And I know a lot of people had to go pick up those guys because Mark Andrews was not getting the job done. I think this could be that Mark Andrews day. And if it is, all of a sudden, people will have missed that window to buy him. So keep that in mind when you're looking here today at that position and realize that there's opportunity for Andrews and a better trend on the upswing. Those are good things. I don't think Mark Andrews is going to be useless the entire season. This is probably, I would think, maybe even the last week you could buy low.
All right, now let's move to a Monday night play, and hopefully you're playing with house money by this point. Breece Hall, over 51.5 rushing yards, new coaching change, new offensive coordinator. Joe, you continue to say play defense and run the football. So how do you lean on Breece Hall's number for Monday?
Yeah, I've been saying it. I feel like Robert Saleh said it, and he got fired. So I don't say it too loud because I like my job here. But at a certain point, when do you just get back to doing that? And maybe Todd Downing will. We'll see. Can you take the ball out of Aaron Rodgers' hands? I think if you do, you're in good shape. I would also be looking not only for the over on Breece Hall's rushing here with the 51.5, which, by the way, he has crossed the first 3 games and hasn't crossed the last 2 weeks. So we've clearly gotten away from running that football. And I know sometimes they've gotten down in games. I don't care. Stick to your identity, play defense, run the football. Don't worry about the scoreboard until you get to the 3rd, 4th quarter here. And I think that's been a bad reaction this Jets offense has had, which you get down by a score or maybe 2, and they just abandon the run game. That's not who you are. That's not what this identity of the offense is. I would also be looking for the over on the receiving yards specifically. I told you Buffalo not good against running backs catching the football, and that's something Breece Hall can do. So all-purpose yards over, rushing over, and, of course, receiving over. Is that enough still to beat the Buffalo Bills and Josh Allen? I got questions about that.
All right, good stuff as always from you, Joe. All right, now young Drake May, his first start for the Patriots. Hey, Drake, give me a break. It was an old commercial from when I was a kid for a business school. Drake May, you think collapsed pockets are going to lead to him scrambling everywhere? You remember this commercial. I can see you laughing. 24.5 rushing yards for Drake May, over or under. Hey, Drake, give me a break. There you go.
Wow. Talk about the recesses of a memory here. If you guys remember that jingle, you should probably schedule a colonoscopy. All right, let's get to Drake May here. 24.5 rushing yards. I'm going over. This is a mobile quarterback in his college career who's going to have to run for his life with this offensive line. I'm just saying, like, in my mind, I set this number at 22.5. I bet it when it came out at 24.5, and I see some places have already moved it to 26.5. So clearly a lot of people are seeing the same thing I am, which is probably an over on the Drake May when you're looking at him with the rushing total. Now, that could be decent for his fantasy value. I just don't know at the end of the day if it's good for the Patriots offense. So I'm excited to see Drake May as a Patriots fan, but as a fantasy analyst, I don't think this really changes the dynamic. I hope I'm wrong, but I don't think the offense all of a sudden just comes to life because Drake May takes over.
Well, listen, tip of the cap to you that you're able to separate those two things. A lot of people aren't. All right, let's go to the book of Joshua. Here we are. As for me and my house, we shall only serve the Lord. Josh Allen, 210. Is that the number? 210.5 passing yards here. Joe, I think you're going to anger a few people here, but how do you lean?
Look, he's gone under this in 3 of his last 4 games. And in those games, 139, 180, 131. So against the Jets defense is very good. I don't see why this isn't over. I'm just putting this out there. Now, I still think Josh Allen and the Bills do enough to win this football game. But if you're talking about fantasy right now, Josh Allen in that passing game is struggling. Why is it struggling? Because you don't have an alpha dog wide receiver. Now, I know Stephon Diggs was a problematic one who wanted the ball all the time, despite the fact, sometimes it wasn't the best play. But that sometimes comes along with the gig of these diva number 1 guys. So can you get Josh Allen another weapon here in the next couple of weeks? Because Khalil Shakir is a nice player. Dalton Kincaid has some talent. Keon Coleman might develop eventually. But none of these guys are moving the needle. Can you get him a Hopkins? Can you get him a Keenan Allen? Can you get him a Devontae Adams? If Josh Allen has Devontae Adams, all of a sudden I think that perspective of the AFC might change a little bit. That's the kind of weapon that's a game changer. And Adams is very motivated to get himself to a contender. The Bills look like a contender. The Jets, I'm not quite sure. I know it's early. They all got 2 wins, but another loss on Monday night could mean bad things for them. We'll see. As we continue on here with FST, when we come back, we're going to take a look at that waiver wire. There's some gems still sitting out there in a lot of leagues that should not be. We'll tell you who when we return.
Anyone that's been to a sporting event, the atmosphere before a game, I think Game Time Decisions has that same exact atmosphere. This is our arena. This is what we do. There is going to be an energy to game time decisions that you will feel night in and night out. The excitement you get when you lock your bets in, when you're figuring out what you want to do, we can zone in on the biggest games each night. I want this to be the place that people come to before the games start so they feel as ready as possible to lock in their cards. We are going to hit every single one of those markets that you need to know about. We're going to go through every single thing, and I've got a great team behind me that's going to help me get the job done. There is not going to be a better place, I promise you, than Game Time Decisions to get that new information, react to it, and be able to then bet accordingly. We will have everything at our disposal, and we will use that to our advantage. I'm Kevin Walsh. Tune into Game Time Decisions from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern on SportsGrid.
I do think they come back, and I think they win this game, but they've got to do it decisively. I think they've got to get that confidence back because they went out there, and like I said earlier, Kentucky almost beat Georgia. Kentucky almost did beat Ole Miss, and I think what you're going to see in this conference, if you don't play well and you're a top 10 team in the SEC, you're going to get knocked out by one of those top 25 teams in the SEC if you're not ready to play.
Powered by SportsGrid.
He already has more than 1,000 yards. The last three running backs to win the Heisman, Derrick Henry, Mark Ingram, Reggie Bush, did not have more than 650 in their opening 5 games of the year. Ashton Genty on pace to strike the pose in December.
Statistics matter. Blow every record out of the water, and he will be a Heisman. Disgraceful performance by the head coach, not genius.
The Early Line. Only on SportsGrid.
All right, welcome back into FST Fantasy Sports Today. Matt Striker and Joe Pisapia. Before we get to the FST waiver wire, Joe has an observation from the London game with regards to something that we were talking about a bit earlier. Joe, what'd you see?
Well, I'm seeing Tank Bigsby run for 8 yards at a clip, and I'm seeing as they get in the red zone here that Tank Bigsby was the guy in the backfield, not Travis Etienne. Now, unfortunately, a penalty has brought them out there. They're now on the 10-yard line here as we still are scoreless in the beginning of the first quarter here. But it's just interesting. I wonder if the worm is really turning in this backfield where Etienne is really becoming more of the passing down guy who's catching the ball in the backfield, and Tank Bigsby is maybe more of the first and second down guy and maybe the guy with more touchdown equity. So keep an eye on this situation. If Bigsby's out there, go get him. I don't know what you're waiting for, folks. But there's some other guys to get too, Matt. We're going to talk about them right here.
All right, let's do it. And first, we'll go to beautiful East Rutherford, New Jersey. So beautiful that we'll actually spend some time, not one, but 2 waiver wire pickups along the highway in gorgeous East Rutherford, just adjacent to scenic Secaucus. And if you can tell by my sarcasm, yeah. All right, let's talk about the Giants here. Let's talk about the running back Tyrone Tracy. He's available in over half of the leagues. What do we expect to see from Tyrone Tracy Jr. moving forward?
I expect to see a lot of people picking him up this morning. Make sure that person is you. He's 45% rostered across leagues on an average. Now, that's something that's far too low considering Devin Singletary's health and considering how Tyrone Tracy played last week, which was really good. I mean, 18 carries for 129 against Seattle. Let me say that again. 18 carries for 129. Folks, I mean, he's getting workload. He looks good doing it. He's got Cincinnati next week and then a week after that against the Philadelphia Eagles. So we'll see if Singletary comes back in time for that. But this could be a scenario where maybe Tyrone Tracy just becomes a more interesting back. So there's a lot of short and long-term appeal. He should be a guy you pick up. And you know what? New Jersey gets a bad rap from all those people in New York who just see the areas that Matt's talking about. There's some beautiful areas in central and southern New Jersey and even North Jersey too. Gorgeous. There's trees, there's parks, there's all sorts of things. That area, it's not ideal.
Indoor plumbing.
No traffic. It's not pretty. It's not pretty. But also Darius Slayton for the Giants, another guy that should be rostered. He's just 17% rostered. He's a streamer this week for me. If you look at the wide receiver landscape too, you're worried about playing Jacoby Myers. You're worried maybe about playing Chris Olave, playing some other guys here that haven't been great necessarily. Darius Slayton is ranked at wide receiver 37 right now on the expert consensus rankings. Folks, that means he's a start this week, hands down, as a flex or as a wide receiver 3. So pick him up, get him in your lineup, play him against the Bengals. I think good things will happen from a fantasy points perspective.
All right, and as I run from all of my friends in New Jersey, and come on, man, half my career, all right, was built along the New Jersey independence scene. So I say it with a little wink of eye and tongue in cheek. But let's go out to Big D. Let's go to Dallas. Joe, you said something. It was kind of a throwaway statement. I believe it was in the first hour about how being a wide receiver in Dallas is actually a very important part if your name isn't CeeDee Lamb. Who's that next receiver? Is Jalen Tolbert that guy? If so, he's still available in over half the leagues.
Yeah, with the Brandon Cooks injury, I think Tolbert could certainly develop into that guy. Detroit, Dallas is a big total today. We'll see if it lives up to the hype. 10 targets last week, 7 catches for 87 and a touchdown. That's a really good number for Jalen Tolbert. He is wide receiver 32 on the season. He has 2 touchdowns on the year now, too. So he's looking for him in the red zone. That's important because those red zone targets are more valuable in fantasy because they attach to touchdowns. So Tolbert is a guy right now that should be rostered in way more than I think 48% of leagues. He should be in the high 60s, if not 70s by now. So people are sleeping on this, and they shouldn't be. I think Tolbert has taken a little while to develop, but things are certainly going in the right direction. So Tolbert, absolutely a guy to add. And if he has another big game today in this high total potential shootout contest, he's going to cost you a lot more in free agent dollars tomorrow. So be aggressive, be proactive, add Tolbert now.
All right, now this next play makes me smile because it reminds me of something my 4-year-old son whispers into my 3-year-old daughter's ears. Let's do a sneaky plan. It's time for a sneaky play here because you have a team on a bye who could have an opportunity for a name to step up here. Ty Chandler, I mean, just available across the board, I would imagine here. This is an opportunity. We don't know what Jones' situation is going to be, but if come next week we find out, people are going to be scrambling for Chandler. You say have him already, huh?
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. He's 36% rostered on average, right? So to me, if Aaron Jones has a hip issue, what are the chances he comes out of this bye 100%? I don't know. Not great necessarily. So maybe get Ty Chandler for one game, maybe get him for multiple games. I mean, look what happened with Nico Collins just this week. He went from he's got a hamstring, he's day-to-day, to the IR in 24 hours. That was a big leap. And I think you want to prepare for those things. Now, I know some cases you don't have the opportunity to make those kind of moves because of your bench, because of who you got to start, because bye weeks. I get it. But if you do have an open bench spot and you're looking for some RB help, or you can put other guys on IR, this is a unique ad right now and get ahead of the game. Ty Chandler was a guy that we added last year, too. He was useful at times in this Minnesota offense. He knows the offense. And Aaron Jones is an older running back. Let's not pretend like he doesn't have a lot of wear and tear on him. So he could miss multiple weeks here. It was kind of lucky the injury happened before the bye, but I'm not sold that he's back necessarily for week 7. So let's add him for nothing. Also in that same vein, Jalen Wright, another guy who looked tremendous last time we saw him. Devon Achane, not so much. He's been dealing with some injuries. Raheem Mostert's been dealing with injuries. So this whole Miami Dolphins offense right now looks pretty rough. Jalen Wright is a guy I was very high on coming into the season. I've been able to hold him in some leagues, but not in some others. But he's been dropped in a lot of leagues simply because of the bye week. 22% rostered. I still think he's a guy that's got upside, Matt. And I think this is a sneaky thing where you're looking to kind of play chess when everybody else is playing checkers. You're looking right now and you're looking to add talent. And I think that's what we're trying to do here.
Yeah, no, I love it. And I love when you say things like that. And I remember early on in the season, you were touting both Jalen's, Warren and Wright. And I had them, couldn't hold on to them. Now Warren ready to come back. And actually during the break, I'm actually going to check my waiver wire in a home league to see if Jalen Wright is there, because that speed kills.
It is. And again, I know some people are feeling that roster crunch with injuries and bye weeks, but if you're not and you have the room to add these guys for nothing, for free, do it now. Because I think, when we roll into late October or early November, you're going to say, man, I'm so glad I added this guy because he's really helping me out. That exists, and we've got a lot of fantasy football left to play. Also, a lot of football left to play in week 6. We return the 3 things that I'm looking for the most with a 3 and out right here on FST.
Anyone that's been to a sporting event, The atmosphere before a game, I think Game Time Decisions has that same exact atmosphere. This is our arena. This is what we do. There is going to be an energy to Game Time Decisions that you will feel night in and night out. The excitement you get when you lock your bets in, when you're figuring out what you want to do, we can zone in on the biggest games each night. I want this to be the place that people come to before the games start so they feel as ready as possible to lock in their cards. We are going to hit every single one of those markets that you need to know about. We're gonna go through every single thing, and I've got a great team behind me that's gonna help me get the job done. There is not gonna be a better place, I promise you, than Game Time Decisions to get that new information, react to it, and be able to then bet accordingly. We will have everything at our disposal, and we will use that to our advantage. I'm Kevin Walsh. Tune into Game Time Decisions from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern on SportsGrid.
I do think they come back, and I think they win this game, but they've got to do it decisively. I think they've got to get that confidence back because they went out there, and like I said earlier, Kentucky almost beat Georgia. Kentucky almost did beat Ole Miss, and I think what you're going to see in this conference, if you don't play well and you're a top 10 team in the SEC, you're going to get knocked out by one of those top 25 teams in the SEC if you're not ready to play.
Powered by SportsGrid.
He already has more than 1,000 yards. The last three running backs to win the Heisman, Derrick Henry, Mark Ingram, Reggie Bush, did not have more than 650 in their opening 5 games of the year. Ashton Genty on pace to strike the pose in December.
Statistics matter. Blow every record out of the water, and he will be a Heisman. Disgraceful performance by the head coach, not genius.
The Early Line. Only on SportsGrid.
All right, welcome back into FSD Fantasy Sports today. Matt and Joe with you. We've got an update from the London game. What's going on?
Yeah, so far 3-0 here with about 3 minutes left. Jacksonville up on the Chicago Bears. The Bears are driving right now, but Caleb Williams struggling and might have turned the football over just now. We'll see how that goes. Make sure you stay here on SportsGrid for all the updates here live, and of course, Pro Football Today to get you ready for all of your wagering. But Jacksonville, good drive. Unfortunately, some penalties and some lack of execution. Stop me if you heard that one before. But I had this one as an under, and it looks like an under again. It looks like Caleb Williams just literally threw the ball into the side of the helmet of his offensive lineman at point blank range just now. So never seen that before, but that's what the NFL is for, right? You always see something new every single week.
All right, so something you've never seen before to 3 things to which you're looking forward to seeing. It's time for 3 and Out with Joe Pisapia. What do you have?
I'm kind of looking forward to seeing that again on a replay, to be honest, because that was kind of fun. The Jets without Robert Saleh, how do they react? I think it's an under. I think it's more of a grinding game. We'll see. I think it's a lot of running the football, but the Jets defense is very good. Josh Allen's very good. We'll see who wins out here at the end of the day, but this feels a little bit more like chaos than it does like rally good vibes when it comes to the Jets, at least to my eyes and ears. The Detroit Lions and Dallas Cowboys. Now, this is huge. Detroit coming off a bye, rested, prepared. The Dallas Cowboys getting their butt kicked at home every time we see that. I mean, getting their butt handed to them at home. They've got to stop that trend. This is a tough assignment here. Jahmyr Gibbs is lined up for a good game. You've got to stop all those wide receivers. It's a lot for this Dallas Cowboy defense that is not 100%. So a lot to unpack here. Very important game here for the Cowboys. I think more important from the Cowboys perspective, but if the Detroit Lions can handle their business, get a W here, I think they might be in control of that NFC. I look around the West. The 49ers are a shell, I think, of what they were. I look around at their own division. Minnesota's very fun. Can we trust Sam Darnold for, the last 8 weeks of the season? Maybe. That defense has been so good. I think the biggest contenders are coming all from that same division, though. I think it is the Green Bay Packers who create turnovers and have Jordan Love. And, I think when everybody gets healthy there, good things could happen. I think that, you look at Minnesota, what they've done, all of a sudden, like Detroit's biggest contenders for that NFC are within that division. So get this Dallas win, handle your division opponents, and I think they could be on cruise control. And last but certainly not least here, what a marquee matchup here. Lamar Jackson and Jaden Daniels. I made them one person. I made them Jamar. Like they had a baby, their relationship. Lamar Jackson and Jaden Daniels together here in what looks like a very exciting matchup of two incredibly gifted young athletes here. What's your prediction for this game? I'm kind of curious what your take is. I think the Ravens win, but I think the Commanders might make it close late because the Ravens have had problems shutting the door on teams. That's a deficit that they've struggled with so far in 2024.
Lifelong Commanders fan here, back when they were called the other team. And I have to say that this is the most exciting and explosive Commanders team that I can remember in recent memory, and it's quite some time. I do expect there to still be a divide between Jackson and Daniels just based on the obvious, on the maturity and things of that nature. But I think we're going to see the health and the pulse of the league. We're going to see it on display. And Jaden Daniels will be playing with a smile on his face. I expect Baltimore to win. I expect them to cover. But it's almost as if it's a victory within a defeat. And I hate saying things like that. I don't like using the word hate. But you're going to be seeing a glimpse into what Jaden Daniels can bring. And the smart wagerer is going to watch this game with the money in their pocket. And what they learn from this game, they're going to wager accordingly the next 2 or 3 games with regards to Jaden Daniels. There's a lot of futures opportunities out there for Daniels. There's a lot of Commanders props that you can take for win total, things of this nature that you can find and really look at, and also look at the fantasy viability of the players around him. The better Jaden Daniels becomes, the better Terry McLaurin comes, the better the rest of the players become as well. So that's my prediction for today. Ravens to win, Ravens to cover, but a victory from a wagering perspective for Commanders fans.
Yeah, stay competitive. Look, and Jaden Daniels has gone over 225 passing yards 4 of his last 4 games. So look at those numbers, maybe bet those overs. I'm also very in on the anytime touchdown for Jaden Daniels. I'm getting plus money on that. He's 2 of the last 3 weeks on there. And don't lose hope, Commanders fans, because after Baltimore, you get Carolina, Chicago, the Giants, the Steelers, and the Eagles. Oh, those are some winnable games here. And then you get to that stretch where they play the Eagles and Dallas Cowboys back-to-back. Those are the games that really matter the most. Keep building, keep growing, keep shining. All those things for the Washington Commanders. All right, that'll do it for us, but the story of the game goes on. For Matt Striker, I'm Joey P. We'll see you next time, kids.
Anyone that's been
We're at a point in time coming off of a wild Saturday of college football. People are consistently peeking over at this board. He actually would not be my number 1 overall pick, nor would I bet him to be the number 1 overall pick. I think you got that next wave of NFL players, which is so enticing, which when you see Jaden Daniels come into the NFL and you go, I can get something like that with a guy with just as good an arm.
Pro Football Today, only on SportsGrid.
Anyone that's been to a sporting event, the atmosphere before a game, I think Game Time Decisions has that same exact atmosphere. This is our arena. This is what we do. There is going to be an energy to Game Time Decisions that you will feel night in and night out. The excitement you get when you lock your bets in, when you're figuring out what you want to do, we can zone in on the biggest games each night. I want this to be the place that people come to before the game starts so they feel as ready as possible to lock in their cards. We are going to hit every single one of those markets that you need to know about. We're going to go through every single thing, and I've got a great team behind me that's going to help me get the job done. There is not going to be a better place, I promise you, than Game Time Decisions to get that new information, react to it, and be able to then bet accordingly. We will have everything at our disposal, and we will use that to our advantage. I'm Kevin Walsh. Tune into Game Time Decisions from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern on SportsGrid.